you also have to fill your cup. And for the longest time, I didn't do that. And I paid the consequences for it in some ways, right? When I let someone go in my office, it's a chance for them to find their happiness elsewhere
Yeah.
because clearly they aren't happy with me and they're showing it and they're exhibiting it. And that's not fair to me and it's not fair to them. I think people need to get back to our roots of going and forming this community because I think together we can change the profession to something better and work against these threats that are kind of looming in.
This is Optometrists Building Empires, and I'm your host, Ankit Patel. Each week, we'll explore the journey of practice ownership and leadership in optometry. Join us for insights and strategies from the top minds in our field. This show is sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team helps your office increase revenues, reduce costs, and reduce staffing headaches. Let's build your empire together. Today's guest is a highly accomplished optometrist, owner, and international speaker. She's built a reputation as a leader in pediatric vision development, binocular vision dysfunction, and advanced contact lens care. She is sought after key opinion leader and consultant for industry leaders, where she trains doctors nationwide in advancements in dry eye treatment, binocular vision, and contact lens innovation. She's optometrist and owner at Birmingham Vision Care and consultant with the Power Practice. Please welcome Dr. Patricia Poma. Patricia, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me here today.
Yeah, I'm excited to have you. I think you bring some interesting perspective to the podcast. And so what was the most important thing that helped you grow your empire?
I was thinking about this for a little while, and I think it's vision. In general, in life, I think it's always started with a vision. I come from an immigrant family that came to the United States for a better life, and it was always about what do I do next? What's next? What do I do to get to where I want to be? And having that path set forward. We think of it as a linear path. I don't know if you've seen that meme or those reels that show, what we think is going to happen, what actually happens. But, um, you know, you project linearly and then you pivot accordingly, right? I am the prize is kind of what I think about. Like, what is it that you want to be when you grow up? What does your life look like? And I know this sounds very Oprah-esque, with her vision boards and that sort of thing. But the reality is you can't get there if you don't know where you're going.
Hmm. Yeah, I like that. And no pun intended, right? With the vision being the most important thing as an
Yeah,
optometrist.
right?
Yeah.
Or no, maybe pun intended.
Maybe a pun intended. Okay, fair enough. Fair enough. I like. Uh, so, tell me a little bit more about that. Would you be able to share your vision and what does that look like?
Yeah, and I think it started, ingrained with, parents. Like my parents weren't given, post, from Italy post World War II. My grandfather's a prisoner of war for 9 years. So right, there's poverty there that happened due to war, and so my parents weren't able to go to college. Right, there was no opportunity, and so it was instilled in me that education was the most important thing. And so but my dad had this vision of my girls are going to go to college, but they're going to get a degree that's employable.
Mm,
And then what does that look like? So, it was, okay, I'm going to get my doctorate. What am I getting my doctorate in? What do I need to get there? What kind of doctor do I want to be? And, even optometry was the lifestyle.
yeah.
And I think that's something that, many women appreciate, being able to, raise a family. And that was my vision too, coming from those immigrant roots and making cannolis on Christmas Day, and that, being able to not live by a pager or a hospital schedule, right? And so knowing that I wanted that work-life balance, knowing that I wanted to be my own boss, right? And so a lot of professions don't allow that, or a lot of doctors don't have that privilege, right?
Yeah.
So, understanding who I was as a person and knowing that with my personality, I probably wouldn't be able to work for many people. Saying that only because, because of my drive, right? So, but then it was also, what makes me happy? I did when I bought my practice, and full disclosure, at the time I was looking back, bought my practice, what seemed like so much money at the time, but it was for 33%. I bought my practice for $280,000. And I say that because I've been offered, without really looking, over 10 million now, right? So to say that like it started with this vision of just getting a college education and doing something better than the generations before you is just, I look back and I'm like, wow, like this is great. And optometry can do that for you. So, well, we'll talk about what my next passion is later, but understanding what person in that chair made me happy? When I saw a patient, what made me have a great patient experience or not so great patient experience? And I realized, when I bought my practice that in order to pay my bills and my student loans, I had to work commercially to supplement. And that did not make my heart happy.
Mm.
Certain settings and certain things, you know, made me dread the day a little more.
Mm.
And so thinking about, when you wake up, what do you get excited for? And choosing that path to going towards that. So for me, I love seeing binocular vision patients, brain injured patients, patients that to me there's a gratitude there that I don't get with a glaucoma patient, that I don't get with a macular degeneration patient. Again, I can see those patients, I know how to practice full scope, but my heart gets happy there. And so I think identifying who you are and going towards what is important to you, what makes you smile throughout the day, I think the income and the success comes later. Now, it takes time and energy to get there, right? We talked about how the path isn't linear. And sometimes, guess what? I have to see a glaucoma patient, um, and I do have the honor of having great associate doctors that will see them for me. But in the beginning, I didn't have that privilege. But what I did is remembered who I was,
Mm.
what I liked, and put my passion, my marketing, my energy towards that. And I think that led the path.
Yeah, it almost sounds like in alignment, right? The vision sort of helped you align with both internal and external, so you're happy with what you're doing now.
Absolutely, absolutely. No, again, it is work. And there are days, right?
Yes.
I don't want to make it sound like it's
Yeah.
all, rainbows and unicorns, but at the same time, we need to choose our happy, right? We need to choose our hard.
Yeah, I like that. Choose our heart. That's a really good framing. Is that so? What kind of as you're building your really impressive practice that you have, what did you run into that you didn't expect? That was like, oh wow, this was not something I expected. That was kind of either really hard or a challenge, or it could have been a surprise.
Oh gosh, where do we start?
Sure.
It's 20 years in the making. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what did I expect? The one challenge that I think I'm a very big people person. I feed off people's energy, and I feel like I can relate to many. I think it's come because of the humble background that I've come from, and creating this passion and figuring out, with employees, how can I make them as passionate as I am? How can I again, I can't make their happiness, but what can I do to provide for them to create a nurturing environment and team so we can all share the same vision?
Mhm.
And that has been and it continues to be as we evolve generationally and as the type of person I hired 20 years ago is very different than the type of person I hired today or even the challenges that people bring. So that to me has been difficult and or challenging, but at the same time very rewarding too, because when you find your ride or dies, when you find those that are there for you and share your vision and you have true partnership and relationships, people that stay with you for 10, 15 years, and are just as excited as you are about whether it's a sale or an accomplishment or a patient who doesn't see double anymore or whatever that means. A kid that puts a pair of glasses on can see for the first time. Um, it's again just as rewarding. But yes, that is the challenge is trying to, especially as the staff gets bigger,
Yeah.
how do you reach out and know personally every single person, whether their dog is sick or their grandma died or, they're just having a bad day, how can I try to, every single morning walk around the office before patient care, say hello and say, how are you? And try to reach out to every single person to show that we are what I call a dysfunctional family.
That's fun. One thing that we do, and I think you might appreciate this. We have our VA will find when they get hired on board, we ask about birthdays of family members, not their birthdays, their kids and their spouses, and
Oh
then we
yeah.
try to get them something small on their birthdays, and just
No,
give them
that's
something
really
small.
sweet.
And it's a really good way of connecting with our staff. Folks tend to like it. So that's a kind of a cool little thing that as you grow, as we grew, that was a helpful thing to kind of help keep that sense of community.
Yeah,
So
and I think it's important also to rotate that through, right? Because then it just becomes,
yeah,
like we have birthday
just
cakes
like
on
checking
on
the box.
birthdays and then yeah, exactly. Like so we try to figure out ways to to develop and change what,
Yeah.
again, what makes someone happy. And that's, I already have a spouse and I feel like I have 30 more, right? Then
Wow. Yeah, no, yeah, it can be leadership is tough, right? They don't tell you how it is until you get
it's
in there.
tough. And I guess
Yeah.
that, leading into that, it's also very lonely.
Yeah.
Right, and someone said that to me. I was in college, and I was in my sorority. I was a director of standards and ethics at my sorority, and it was, that one of the alumni came up to me. She says, "It's lonely at the top," and I hated her for saying that because it stuck with me.
Yeah.
And the reality is, even though you're surrounded by people who care about you, when it comes down to it, it's you. It's on you. The responsibility, the I have a bunch of single moms that I feel responsible for. If they don't make income, they don't have health insurance, it's all
Mm.
on me. And so, um, that has also been a challenge, as I emerge as a leader even within the industry, helping other optometrists, trying to find a way to fulfill yourself. And I say that because there's so many private practitioners who are single doctor practices. I'm very blessed with a partner in my practice. I have associate doctors. So it's not as bad, but I think it's really important to remember that you also have to fill your cup. And for the longest time, I didn't do that. And I paid the consequences for it in some ways, right?
So, say more about that. What do you when you say fill your cup? I kind of have an idea what you mean, but I want to kind of hear your perspective.
Well, again, knowing your vision, obviously, and doing what you like is first. I think that's filling your cup on a professional level, but on a personal level, when you have to be the one, I joke around even as a parent, like you always have to be the bad guy. You do it out of goodness for the greater cause, and for the children, it's you want them to be good humans one day, but you're protecting the practice reputation. You're protecting optometry in general because I, as an optometrist, feel like I have to stand my ground and prove that I'm worthy because I'm not ophthalmology. So there's that challenge every day. And trying to, whether it's culture that you're trying to say, or disciplining someone, or guiding them and teaching them, even though they don't want, we change and we pivot maybe the way we do a procedure, and everyone's used to the old way. And yeah, it's always, I feel like me that has to be the one that guides and teaches them that sometimes it'd be really nice just to have someone, say, "I've got you." And
Yeah.
so filling my cup, what do I do? I make sure I find time for self-care.
Hmm.
It's really important, whether it's reading a book, whether it's getting a massage, which happened today, whether it's, going to work out. So, I'm a big weightlifter.
Mhm.
I do that because that's where I'm choosing that over wine. I'm trying to go the healthier route, but,
Yeah.
letting out that angst, the anxiety, the stress, the pressure that sometimes you can just throw weight around, and everybody has their way to do it, but making sure that no matter what, you carve out a little bit of time throughout your week to find some time to reflect and be you. Yin yoga is another thing that I do,
Hmm.
because I'm so intense and high energy that it's great just to calm down a bit and just reflect. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's interesting. A graduate program. I had a professor who did a lot of work around this. He wrote two books. One was called "The Science of Change." That's the newest one, and the other one is "Becoming a Resident Leader."
Hmm.
And both of them talk about like you said, right, having enough downtime. So things like doing compassionate work, doing things like yoga or hobbies, doing things that make you feel hopeful, fill your cup up. So it's
Yeah.
really cool to hear you say those things. How you fill your cup up.
And I thought, in my younger years, I thought that wasn't relevant.
Hmm.
I thought that, it there wasn't any importance. Like I was taking time away from building and getting to my goals by doing that. That was very selfish of me.
Hmm.
But I think that comes from, again, I keep going back to my background, but my father, in order to provide a better life for his kids, worked 14 hours a day, 7 days a week, and during his vacations had side hustles.
Hmm.
So I would see, because that was what he felt he needed to do to provide a better life for us. And he did, and I'm so grateful for that. But then I felt like I was letting my people down by not being on 24 hours a day and thinking and driving and pushing. And that led to, like, things like adrenal fatigue for me, and anxiety and lack of sleep, and things that I've learned, like, okay, like we need to, and then having kids when I'm home, I wanted to be, the laundry, the cooking, the this, the that, right? Whatever that is, volunteering at the school, right? So finding again, just I'm a better human because of it,
Mm.
because I take, and it doesn't have to be a lot. Maybe it's 20 minutes for reflection. Maybe it's, everyone's why is different and but I think it's very, very important. The younger generation, I think, is better at this though.
Yes.
I'm considered a zennial, so I think that,
No.
that it's yeah.
You're
They
speaking my
they
language. You're Oregon Trail generation, huh?
they're I mean, they're, they've learned from watching us,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, yeah. I think, I'm also a Zennial, which for those you
Okay,
don't know, is usually like 78 to 83, 84-ish. It's not really hard
yeah,
fast.
and my son tells me that doesn't exist. That's not a thing.
Yeah, I
So
mean, look, I'm gonna believe it exists. So,
exactly, exactly.
but curious. You touched on it briefly. You've got a huge staff. How are you dealing with, or if you're, how are you dealing with staff challenges? That's a common theme that we're seeing across the board. If you're not dealing with it, I'm curious to know your secret.
No, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. First is hire the right person.
Mm.
Don't hire out of desperation and don't allow
Oh,
yourself to get desperate. Easier said than done.
yeah.
Right. But again, the vision of what it is that you need and what it is you want. And I truly believe that you have to have common, and I guess that comes with any relationship, right? How many marriages do you know that someone married because their clock was ticking, they're 30, 35 years old, and they're like, they find someone and just to find someone, and everyone can see it's not going to work, right? So don't do that same thing that you're so worried about just filling a void that it's not the right person to fill that. So, um, you know, knowing that that person has to have the same core values, the same vision as you, the same, the person that walks in and is staring at their watch every second because, they want to be elsewhere. I think everyone deserves the right to be happy. And I might not, so when I let someone go in my office, it's a chance for them to find their happiness elsewhere
Yeah.
because clearly they aren't happy with me and they're showing it and they're exhibiting it. And that's not fair to me and it's not fair to them. Maybe firing them is the best thing that could ever happen to them because maybe that gives them an opportunity to do better,
Yeah.
to find better. And that changes. And so I think the biggest thing with staff to in order to keep that happiness is really understanding who each individual is. And again, if you have a lot of staff and you can't do that, then having managers or associate doctors or someone else that is good at that. But whether it's personality grouping, are you a yellow, are you a red, or are you an I, or there are all these different types of things. But putting people in roles that is adequate for them too. So as I get to know staff members, within their 90 days, we look at what they're doing. We get to know them and say, I know you start off as a receptionist, but your attention to detail
Mm.
is so great. Why don't we have you order some contact lenses, or why don't we have you do some billing? Because you could see that maybe talking to someone on the phone doesn't spark joy, but the details and them making spreadsheets and organizing things does. And so we start to move people around based on that, trying to help
Yeah.
them. And that's been very great. So, they get to see the office and shadow and do and then hopefully, we've had techs become vision therapists. We've had front desk people become opticians. We've had, and it gives them a chance to expand even too. Also provides backup coverage because if they're an optician, all of a sudden someone calls in sick,
Yeah.
they're happy to help out for
Sure.
one day. Yeah, as long as you don't do it too much.
Well, I'm curious, can you share your, like, what vision do you share? Like, what is your vision for the practice? Is that something you would be able to share? Your values, your vision? Just give people a flavor of what this might look like in practice if they were to have it at their offices.
Yeah, so my passion is specialty clinics. And actually lately my passion has been optometry in general.
Yeah.
I think that we're at crossroads in the profession, and I worry about where we're going in the future.
Mm.
So seeing this trend of glasses and contacts and vision plans and insurances isn't, the same old's not cutting it anymore. And I don't think a lot of optometrists realize that, and they're waiting for someone to save them.
Mm.
They're waiting for that reimbursement to go up from $30 to $32, right? And so seeing that, I've been very lucky that I started out as a vision therapist in my practice.
Mhm.
So that early on, I had a private pay specialty um, thing that helped me get excited about seeing a certain type of subset of patients. But within my practice, I have an entrepreneur type personality though, but so I like and I thrive with change. Not everyone's like that. I think that's been very helpful to me. So getting excited about duping, if you will, the system has been my goal and my passion, and finding those that can help me with that. So that being said, as I got older, aesthetics maybe became a little bit of a thing in my practice. So we talked about dry eye, and we talked about we have things like the ocular procedure that helps tighten skin.
Yep.
We have so nutrition, because there's a huge nutritional aspect. So now we're doing omega-3 testing and antioxidant testing and selling things like collagen and skincare within our office, right? That's been super exciting because those are questions that patients were asking me and I didn't have answers to. And as I get older, those are questions that I have for myself. Like, how do I fix this? Um, and and so, it became like knowledge that I wanted that I'm projecting onto my patients. And they see how excited I get about helping them with it, that energy is very contagious. And then that's what success is, right? Like if you offer something and I feel like a lot of optometrists are just buying things like an IPL just because
Mm.
that's what everyone else is doing, right? That's the trend. I'm going to get one. I need one. They're buying an OCT because in order to have a practice, you have to have an OCT. But if you're not treating glaucoma or mac degen, why do you have an OCT, right? Like, what is it that makes you, again, that patient that makes you excited? What is it that makes a good experience for you that you leave that exam room smiling
Yeah.
and take that energy and bring it towards that? Because patients feel it. You can tell when you're with someone that's really into the conversation or not when you're out to dinner or whatever that may be, right? So,
Yeah.
and so, when they feel your passion and your energy and they get excited and they leave happy, they're happy that with your confidence and they're happy to spend the money in your practice. Now, that being said, glasses and contacts can still be a thing. Again, is that what you're passionate about?
Yeah. It's a good question. I,
Yeah.
I love that. So what I'm hearing is that your vision should align. It should feel, there should be, I'll call it alignment, right? You should feel good about where you're going as a practice. You should feel good about the things. And um, I, I want to build on that a little bit. So you kind of touched on it a little bit. So what are you excited about for the industry? So you kind of hinted at it, but what are you most excited about as you move forward?
What am I excited about? The opportunity. I think there's so many more things. Again, we're not just a one or two type
Mhm.
industry. Um, Personally speaking, I think I'm gonna find a greater purpose soon, and I don't know what that looks like. My greater purpose and passion is to be to, and I hate to say that it's not gonna be me alone, but to save optometry.
Mm.
I'm worried about a lot of the things, commodization of contact lenses,
Mm.
managed care. I've been recently kicked off of some medical panels
Oh, really?
because
Wow.
because I won't take certain vision plans. And so they're tied together. And even though it's illegal, how do you fight that, right?
Yeah.
I see ophthalmology now hiring nurse practitioners
Mhm.
to do optometry's work. I see the vertical integration that's happening within the industry. I see and so um, I want to help optometry find their passion, find their roots, and I think scope of care is important. I do think that, you know, we are capable of doing more, but we have to remember where our roots are and continue to prosper. And because our foundation's crumbling, and yet we're trying to build on a faulty foundation just a bit. So, I do a lot of consulting. I go talk to optometrists. I do, go to their offices and try to help them with their practices. And that's been very fulfilling. I'd like to do that on a bigger level, and I'm trying to figure out what that looks like, because I'm really worried. I don't want to become like pharmacy,
Yeah.
um, and I do think pharmacy in some ways is making a comeback. And you see the compounding, and again, those are people who are passionate about it, right? That's extra work and extra energy that it takes to compound, and it's not for everyone, right? The hospitalist, the pharmacist in the hospital, that's again, it's a different sort of pharmacy too. But it took 20 years right before for it to come back a little. So I don't want optometry to take that huge dip. Um, but I can't be the only one.
Yeah.
I think we need to find our grit. I think we need to find a little bit of grit and kind of, put some elbow grease in it. And I'm not sure how that's going to happen, but I would like us to wake up a little.
Well, I love what you're saying in terms of, so I'm hearing a couple interesting things that I haven't heard before. So you kind of just slipped it in there, but you said you basically do blood testing for omega-3
Yeah.
levels in people.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
do you do other blood tests or do you do like other type of panels?
Not too much. The blood testing. So I have to practice within my scope. So
Yeah.
I'm technically not blood testing anyone. The patients can, yeah. Well, I have to be careful because I
You
don't
have to
need
go get,
anyone
you ask,
knocking on my door.
well,
No, no. The patient actually pokes their own skin. It's a little skin prick
oh,
test,
interesting.
right?
Okay.
And then they blot 3 little circles, and that gets turned into the lab, and then we test. Yeah,
Okay.
I get really tired of I mean, I do talk about omega-3s and how there's the alpha ester versus the natural triglyceride and inflammatory chains and all these things, and we don't regulate supplements, and so finally, instead of arguing with patients, I say, "There's a lot of garbage out there. Let's test the supplement you're taking and see if it's performing. If it's
Good.
not performing, then we'll go ahead and make changes and see how that, and so, kind of putting money where my mouth is, right? Like in the sense of like, because patients are like, "Oh, I'm taking an omega-3," but they're not really, right?
It's not
So we
enough or not the
decided
right type.
it's
Yeah.
not enough, it's not the right kind, it's not, so now I'm like, "Okay, let's prove it. Let's see how well you're doing because I'm not seeing the results on your eyes." Right?
That part of like just a dry eye treatment protocol that you do?
It's part of what we do
Or
for our
do it?
dry yeah, exactly. Not every patient does that part of it, but is an option within our office that we do. Yeah,
I like it.
absolutely.
Yeah, and obviously, I just assumed you partnered with a lab and said, "Okay, go pay for this lab over there at Quest or wherever and come back." But that sounds pretty cool. You have it integrated a little bit better with your practices,
Yeah, absolutely.
within the scope of what you're allowed to practice within your state.
Within my
Yeah.
yeah, the patient has to poke their own finger,
Yeah.
which is interesting because they can have their cousin poke their finger if they're afraid, but yet I can't do it. But, here we are, semantics.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, we don't want to break any laws. So that's,
No, no, if I'm gonna break a law, that's not the one I'm breaking.
yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
fair enough. And so, I wanted to get your perspective too, because we did mention that you do consulting with the power practice and you
Mhm.
do, you see a lot of practices. What are you seeing as general themes that optometrists across the country that you work with are doing well? And the main thing that you see that are opportunities that you see consistent?
So, what they're doing well, I
Yeah.
think optometrists are a very, very smart group of individuals. I think their knowledge base and I think that it's inbred in us that we have to be smart. We have to know our things. We need to be better. It's instilled in us in school because, we are a legislated right profession and we have a lot of people that don't want us doing what we're doing, right? There are some states in which you can't prescribe narcotics. There are some states in which glaucoma maybe, there's restrictions, right? And so I think we're very good at paying attention during CE for the most part and doing all the right things and reading the journal articles and getting the knowledge base. What I think what we could use help in is adapting to change. Again, taking that knowledge and explaining things to patients or communicating. Um, we're very good at buying instruments and buying the latest technology, but we're not good at implementing what we're doing. We know what we should do, but we're afraid. We're afraid to ask for an eye exam that costs more than $30. We're afraid to get someone to pay $2,000 cash for an IPL. We're afraid to charge our worth and our fees because we're afraid people won't come back. We want to be liked. And then the other challenge that I'm noticing recently is with the cold starts. And this is a generational thing. That we're, those not all. I want to be careful that not everyone's the same, but the mantra of work smarter, not harder is what goes around and what a lot of the younger generation says. But at the same time, you have to work hard so you can get smart. They forgot that portion. So here I have cold starts that want to be like $1 million in debt because they want everything and they want to they don't want to put the time in. They want to work from 10 to 2, make $500,000 a year, and they want to um, contract out every single thing. And I'm like, well, no, your employees can do that. You have to teach them how to do it. Well, I have to teach them. Let me hire someone to teach them. And so to put you have to put that time and energy. Again, we need that little bit of grit, that hard work that needs to go in. So then later, right, you have to invest in that 401k before you get the end result. And they're kind of like, well, I went to school and I passed boards. I'm like, yes, I understand.
Put a
I
shingle up.
spent many dollars in debt, but you have to, get your hands dirty a little bit, right?
One thing I've learned from running other businesses, and this one too, is that I have to at least know exactly what good looks like in each job before I can let someone else do it or train it or manage it. So I
Yes.
knew what to do, what I wanted from that person, because it's very hard for me to clarify. Hey, as a man, what do I want from my manager of my practices, my GM, right? I was like, well, I don't know. If I haven't done it before, I don't understand. I don't know. So I think that's something that I made a mistake when I was younger, for sure. That like, oh, I'll just like find someone else who's an expert. I don't have to worry about that. But like, okay, no, I kind of do have to worry about that part.
Yeah, I think everybody wants to be like the CEO right away, and again, it's amazing once you get there, but at the same time, we're in the if you think about where we are as a society, we are the generation or recent years, we are the ones that get like HelloFresh, or
Mhm.
we have the lawn service, we have the
Yep.
cleaning person, we have a guy, we always no matter what the task is, there's a guy that does that for me, right? This service, that subscription, that and so when you start a business, a cold start, especially with limited fees and limited patience, you gotta be the guy a
Yeah.
little bit. There are things that maybe again, and here I am talking on both sides of my mouth because I'm like, follow your passion and do these things. But at the same time, you have to make mistakes and learn from them and look at the income you have. You can't spend like you're a huge practice when you're not yet, right? And it's good to get and feel and that's how you figure out who you are and what, and how you're gonna build is by being in the trenches just for a little while.
Yeah. I like that. Um, and one thing I see that's common in a lot of the optometry is not as much focus on getting more patients in the door outside of referral, right? Outside of just getting on insurance panels and using digital. Right? And one of the most effective things that we find is boots on the ground, like going to networking events locally, going to like races or whatever, getting your face out locally. And you're right. That's like a lost art. It's like even more established or new practices tend to struggle, don't want to do that as much.
Well, I think that's this is like a post-COVID thing in general, especially.
Mm,
Um, you know, listen, I mean, we're doing a podcast right now.
yeah.
I mean, this is where we're getting our information from our phones, right? We're virtual CE and these drug reps are begging us to come to dinners and no one's going to dinners anymore to get information, right? And you're right. I think it's important to forge relationships. And in general, my son just started college and I was asking him, like, who he's met, and he's like and I said, "Well, you just walk around the hallways, and when you see an open door, you wave." He's like, "Mom, no one has their door open anymore. It doesn't happen." And so and I get that, again, finding that me time, I just, again, talking out both sides of my mouth, that's important. But it's also important, like, for example, I mentioned how I don't like to treat glaucoma, right? That is not my thing. Um, and so I have an associate doctor that does that for me, but before the associate doctor, I could forge a relationship with another optometrist that maybe loved glaucoma, send them patients, and then them send me pediatric patients that maybe they don't like to see. And forming these partnerships and these connections, is very, very important. And that's not happening anymore. You're absolutely right. Like we're all kind of isolated, again, lonely at the top.
Mm,
And I think people need to get back to our roots of going and forming this community because I think together we can change the profession to something better and work against these threats that are kind of looming in.
yeah. Okay. That's pretty, I think that's pretty insightful. I So let's shift gears a little bit.
Okay.
I'm kinda curious you told us a couple of stories that made you who you are. Can you share another story with the audience of something that was really made you who you are today? A formative story. It could have been when you were younger, older, but, it's something that you're like, "Yeah, viscerally, that is something that formed me into the person I am today."
Who made me today? It's funny because my mom looked at me the other day and she says, Patricia, when's enough enough?
Mm,
When are you going to just sit back and enjoy? And I kind of I looked at her and I'm like, I don't know. That's a hard question, right? So when do you cash in your chips? When do you, do something different and or relax a little bit and just and but part of it is enjoying the hustle. So um there's that fine balance. I have my favorite aunt healed over and died at 47 of an aneurysm. So I guess that's a story I'll tell you. And remembering that, working hard is important, but also again, that life, take the vacations, enjoy your family. Tomorrow isn't promised.
Mm.
And so, staying true, like if tomorrow would end, did I do all the things that I want to do?
Yeah, that's that, it's interesting because I think, especially most folks listening to this, if they're mid-career, probably have that question at some point too.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear about your aunt.
No, no, but yeah, it was very sad. It's still sad. But at the same time, it molded me in that way to stop and look up every once in a while
Mm.
because I wasn't, as I mentioned before. I was following my dad's footsteps of working nonstop. I mean, when I bought my practice, there was a point in time where I had to borrow money from my son to pay the bills, right? So, right, working Sundays commercially, even like working 7 days a week, trying to hustle it and make it. And I'm proud of that because I think that, someone said to me, "You're so lucky." And I said, "Well, maybe there is a little bit of luck, right? There's that. But there's also been a lot of sacrifice and time. But I do think that, for someone like me, there are others I feel like need a little hustle. They need to work a couple Sundays. But at the same time, I want to stop and make sure that when I look back, that I don't, wish I had more time with my sons or wish I had more time with my husband or my family or just like doing things that I just enjoy doing."
Yeah, that's, I think that's a valuable lesson for everyone, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's morbid a little bit, but at the same time, um, you know, we need to live for today. I was always living for tomorrow. And so this is what my friends call Patricia 2.0.
Really.
Okay.
With all these insights that you've had, what advice would you give to your younger self right after you graduated OD school?
Oh gosh. Stop doubting yourself.
Mm.
There's a little bit of imposter syndrome that happens. Like, who do you think you are? Why do you deserve this? Um, Just believing in myself, but I think that insecurity is what drove me, almost proving to myself that I was worthy enough to to
Oh,
to make it somewhere. So it's not a bad thing, right? But at the same time, don't worry so much. You're gonna be okay. And I think in the long run, everything in life happens for a reason, and it builds who you are and who you become. But I wish I would have worried a lot less.
hmm.
I wish I would have been a little more, secure in myself and knowing that everything was gonna be okay.
It's good insight.
Yeah.
I and so, Patricia, if people want to get in touch with you, where can they find you?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, for there, and then, my email address is drpoma@birminghamvision.com.
And we'll put that in the show notes as well for people who get in touch with you. And just Birmingham, not the one in Alabama, the one in Michigan.
Birmingham, Michigan.
Michigan.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. Let's say,
Again, Detroit grit.
yeah, yeah. Like, so thank you again, Dr. Poma, for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me. It was an enjoyable time. I appreciate you.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. And I want to share a little bit of what I took from this conversation. What I saw is a vision being the theme that ties the thread across your span of your career. So the inspiration from your grandparents tying into your why, a deep seated why, into hey, I'm going to make this successful no matter what. And your why has been the thing that has been able to overcome a lot of the really hard challenges you face in growing your practice. And that why is also not just a pie in the sky. It really resonates and it's very visceral for you. And it's like, okay, it's very aligned with what you were saying. Like, hey, man, I don't like glaucoma, so I'm going to have partnerships with that, right? I'm going to figure out how to do the job. And yeah, it's work sometimes, but it's important because my bigger why is what's driving me, not the fact that I don't want to do this work right now. And so I see that as a consistent theme. And it's interesting because your later in life, you saw your aunt, passing. That sort of, like you said, Patricia 2.0 with, hey, being present, not forgetting your why. And why is not always about the future, but it's also about the present now. And so it's interesting to see that transformation over time in your career. I'm really excited to see what else you bring to the industry. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. And thank you, audience, for listening. And if you learned something or laughed, please share the podcast with a friend and make sure you hit the like and subscribe button to never miss an episode. And if you use the HubSpot link in the show notes to book a meeting, I'll send you a free copy of my book, Optometry Redefined. Thank you again, Patricia. And this has been another exciting episode of Optometrists Building Empires. See you next time. That's a wrap on another episode of Optometrists Building Empires. Thanks for joining. For show notes and more, visit buildingempires.live. This show is proudly sponsored by My Business Care Team. My Business Care Team was born out of staffing challenges my wife and I faced together, managing multiple optometry locations. We refined our approach at Classic Vision Care and now offer our expertise to others. If you're experiencing challenges with staffing and you'd like to set up a discovery call, we'd be happy to help you and connect you with the right resources. We'll see you next time.